My name is Paul Clements, and the photo was taken originally in a road called Bridle Path in Beddington in Surrey of me and my father holding me in the garden, and it was taken by my auntie Valerie, who is still alive, and it was taken on Kodachrome 64, which is a very magical film, which I really like. And it was such a surprise to come across that photo because it was only found about 10 years ago. Obviously I don't remember the photo being taken, but because the photo is so kind of lifelike and very realistic, it was like it was taken yesterday. So in a way, that memory of the photo has been implanted in my memory, and I just appreciate it for the quality and the light. And I'm with my dad, and I'm holding his finger with my hand, which I still look at and remember the times that my father was holding me and my hand was holding onto his finger. So it's quite evocative, and it's a really precious memory because I don't really have much left physically of my father at all. I just have a few photos and a watch, and that's it really. So it's a very precious photo for me. The setting of the photograph is in the back garden of the house that we shared with my grandparents, my mother, my father and me. And it was taken in June 1963 on a lovely summer's day, and it looks so happy and hopeful, looking towards the future. Obviously that future didn't work out for us, but it's just a very precious memory. Going back today was really special because we approached the present owner of the house, and he was obviously a little bit suspicious of us initially, but invited us into the back garden where the original photo was taken. And as I was standing against the wall to have my photograph taken, the rear door was open, and there was these evocative smells coming from the house, as well as music that would have been played in 1963 from Frank Sinatra and Andy Williams. And it was just the whole evocative smell of being back there, and I found it it was really precious to be there, to stand in the same place that my father stood in holding me. But it was just so evocative, and it was just so lovely as I was looking through the back door, just looking at features within the house, and I noticed one of the doors was obviously an original part of the house when it was built in the 1920s or 30s. It was a very Art Deco panel door with a glass part in it as well. And as I was looking in, the man, John, who owns the house now, said to me, "You'd like to go in, wouldn't you?" And I said, "Oh, yes, please." And he said, "Well, you can't." And he was obviously just pulling my leg, and he invited us into the house, and it was something I've always wanted to do, and to go into the house itself and be part of it was just like coming home in a way. But it was just so evocative, especially, as I said, with the music and especially the smells of home cooking, and it felt a very, very safe place to be in, even though it's not my house anymore. It was a very special experience. My father was a welder. He worked in Purley, which is now, there was a power station there, which is now the IKEA in Purley. I had the opportunity to move to South Africa to carry on that job at a better paid rate. So he took that opportunity, and those photographs were taken before we left. And so we moved to South Africa in mid-summer of 1963. And we moved to Johannesburg, and my father settled into his job very naively, not really knowing about what the situation was like in South Africa. But he soon found out what was happening and became very upset by it, and he joined a trade union and was getting quite upset about the political situation and getting involved with local politics. And by the end of November 1964, my mother and I came back to England to visit her parents, my grandparents, just before Christmas, and we were going to stay for Christmas, then go back to South Africa in January. But unfortunately, my father was killed in Johannesburg in our flat while we were away. The front door was smashed in, and some of the furniture was misplaced and broken. There was a cabinet that had the glass broken, and my father was unfortunately shot and killed on the premises. The incident was investigated by the South African police force, who unfortunately decided that it was a suicide, which was shocking to obviously my mum and her parents and her brothers and sisters. Couldn't believe what was happening, but were in no position to investigate the situation. But because my father was put down in the post-mortem and also the death certificate as committing suicide, that meant that any monies or insurance was null and void. So we were left practically destitute in London, and for the next few years we moved between people's houses, sleeping on their settees and on spare beds and everything, while my mum worked. And I was still young and I was going to school, and there was aunties and uncles who stepped in to pick me up from school, but my mum had about 2 or 3 jobs a day just to keep us going, really. And so it was quite tough. But as a kid, I thought it was great because I was playing with all my cousins and moving around different houses and everything, while my mum was working, flogging herself on 3 jobs a day. My mother then was fortunate to meet another man who was very, very kind, and she married him, and he became my stepfather. And I had, from then on, I had the best childhood ever. I had, adventure playgrounds to play at, Ashdown Forest near Crawley, where I lived, to play in the woods and be completely mischievous as a young boy. From that really bad negative thing that happened with my father, 1964, there was a real positive came from it. And, if he was around, he would be so happy to see, what my life turned out like, and, the beautiful children and the lovely wife I now have. I think, losing my dad has made me very humble and appreciative of life and other people. And I think it's made me a lot more tolerant of people who are in worse situations. And so I do tend to be quite kind to other people, really, and I take them on face value, and I don't try to judge people if I can. So that's and that's what I try to tell my children as well. That photograph is the photograph. I have another one framed of my mother and me, and that one, my mother's still around, so the one with my father is very precious to me. In the photo where I'm holding his hand, I'm holding one of his fingers, his little finger or something, with my left hand, and I can look at my left hand and think, that I held my father in that hand one day. Retaking the photograph, I initially I thought I would be a bit upset and a bit sad about it, but I found it made me really happy. I felt so secure and comfortable, and I just felt like I'd come home. It was just really strange, and those smells that were coming from the house and the evocative music that was being played, the Frank Sinatra and Andy Williams, it was just like time travelling almost, really, and it was just really therapeutic. It just felt so good and so happy, and I'm going to remember my dad till the day I die. He will always be with me. And I can't wait, to meet him eventually. And that's going to be a special day. I love him very much, and I miss him a lot. And I wish he was here with me now, But he knows I've had a great life and I've got beautiful children. So he'd be very proud of that. And I always say to my mum, what would Dad say about Reese or Dylan? Would he love them? Would he be proud of them? And she just cries and says, of course he would. He'd absolutely love them to bits and spoil them like all grandparents do, away from their parents. That's what grandparents are for, to be naughty to their grandchildren and give them sweets and things they shouldn't eat. So he would love to be in that position to do that. And, but I know, he's with us. So, and as I said, and I keep on saying, he lives on through me and my children. And that's a real positive from a really bad negative. So, that's a really good thing.